Welcome to Innovations and Breakthroughs with your host, Rich Goldstein, talking about the evolutionary, the revolutionary, the inspiration and the perspiration, and those aha moments that change everything. And now, here's your host, Rich Goldstein.
Rich Goldstein here, host of the Innovations and Breakthroughs podcast, where I feature top leaders and the path they took to create change. Past guests include Rick Cesari, Bob Serling, and Stephen Key. This episode is brought to you by my company, Goldstein Patent Law, where we help you to protect your ideas and products. We've advised and obtained patents for thousands of companies over the past 26 years. So if you're a company that has software, a product, or a design you want protected, go to goldsteinpatentlaw.com, where there are amazing free resources for learning about the patent process. And you could email my team at welcome@goldsteinpc.com to explore if it's a match to work together. You could also check out the book I wrote for the American Bar Association that explains in plain English how patents work. It's called the ABA Consumer Guide to Obtaining a Patent. I have here today Noah McNeely. Noah is a creativity and innovation expert. Noah has spent much of his career helping to shape and guide a seemingly endless series of good ideas into successful product businesses. Noah has developed products for a wide variety of startups and also for major brands, including Coca-Cola, Procter and Gamble, Black & Decker, Arm & Hammer, Plantronics, Biolab, C.R. Bard, the Home Depot, and many others. Noah's present company, Product QuickStart, provides product development, prototypes, and manufacturing services to inventor entrepreneurs, early-stage companies, and startups. It's my honor to welcome here today Noah McNeely. Welcome, Noah.
Thanks for having me. It's an honor to be here.
My pleasure. And so, how did you get started in innovation?
Well, so I went to engineering school at Georgia Tech right out of high school. I really didn't know that much about innovation. I just knew that I like being creative and I like building things. And naively, I thought that's what engineering was all about. So then I got to school and I realized that there was a lot of calculus involved and a lot of physics and a lot of studying till 3 o'clock in the morning to get through a lot of classes. So, that's how I got started in a way. Through my experience there, I actually did some work at General Electric as a student, internship type program, and that really opened my eyes to how the real world works. It's not just formulas and calculus and mathematics. It's actually understanding some of the business side of innovation and so forth and so on. So I got all the way through mechanical engineering school and decided this is about half of what I really want. The other half is a field called industrial design. So I went back to grad school and eventually earned a master's degree in that program. And it took me a while to figure out the right path, but really I'd always been a creative person. I'm one of those weird kind of students who I love both the math classes in high school and the art classes. And it took me a while to figure out a way to combine them. And that's how I got started.
Got it. And so it's interesting. So it turns out you were right. Like you went into engineering school thinking that it was about building things and designing products. And they said like, no, it's about calculus and about like lab reports and things like that. Right. And then as it turns out, you realize later, like, no, the real world is not about calculus and lab reports. It's about actually figuring out what works for a business. So like what's going to help. So it's about building things, right? So it turns out you were right, what it's really about.
Yeah, and I have a lot of respect for the academia side. I'm actually a board member of the external advisory board down at the Georgia Tech ME school. So I have a lot of respect for that, and it's a great foundation for real world application. I think it's maybe a little tough to go really deep into product development without some of that foundation, but the foundation alone can get you to maybe being a professor or a teacher of engineering, not necessarily the application of engineering into real product development in the real world. I think that requires the experience, and it requires much more than just the theory behind how the world works. It involves actual experience in how the world works.
Yep, absolutely. And it's funny because engineering school is a wake-up call for me too. It's like a little bit of a different one. It was like, that's when I realized that engineering wouldn't be about designing something cool every day,
Right.
that it was about working on the same project every single day for 5 years at a time. And that's when I pivoted into patent law,
Yeah.
and that's what gave me the ability to work on different things every day.
Now,
So
there
it
are some
sounds like,
engineers that thrive on that.
yeah,
They'll be happy to design the same turbine blade for the next 30 years, and that's their happy place. But it's not mine.
not mine either. And it sounds like, though, that part of your pivot was towards industrial design then, is to realize that maybe industrial design had a bit more of the flavor of what you were looking for in terms of getting to kind of design some cool stuff.
Yeah, I mean, the way I tell people is I speak both languages of product development. I speak the engineering side of, how do you make it work? How do you make sure it's manufacturable? How do you make sure the cost is right?
Right.
But I also speak the design side of how do you actually make it something that people want to use, make it something that people want to buy. And you really have to succeed on both sides of that to have a good product. I mean, you can have, a big gray box that works really, really well, but nobody's going to put that in their kitchen. Or you can have this really fancy looking thing that doesn't work and nobody's going to buy that either. So you really have to have that combination.
Yeah, absolutely. So that is a great combination. And so I think you had told me that you spent a good deal of time doing this type of design work on a big scale, where you had a company that did all this work for major clients, but I guess it was a pretty big team, and at times you weren't as connected to the client and connected to the work as you would like to be.
Yeah, so I've been doing this for going on 25 years. Right out of grad school, I started a company with some other partners. We actually grew that company to about 40 designers and engineers and scientists and other types over the course of several years. And I managed that company. I ran it. I was the CEO for several years. And we did a lot of work with companies like Black & Decker and Coca-Cola and really big name companies. I really saw a lot of that side of the industry. But as the team grew, I realized, I turned 40. My wife says I hit my midlife crisis. I realized that all I was doing was managing people. I wasn't working with clients. I wasn't innovating. I wasn't doing any of the stuff that I got into this industry originally to do. I was getting further and further from my passion. And I wised up one day and realized that life's too short not to work on what you're passionate about. So we ended up spinning that company off, sold it to some of the employees, and they're still out there. They still do really high tech, high end type of programs. But that's how Product QuickStart was formed. It really around my passion of working with smaller companies. I really enjoy the educational side of helping people that maybe haven't done it before work all the way through the process of, I have an idea, all the way, I don't even know what to do with it, all the way through their design, their engineering, their prototyping, building out their supply chain. And the way I tell people, we're here to provide as much help as they need or as little help as they need. And because our clients are typically startups or entrepreneurs or inventors or small companies, they only have so much resources to get their product across the finish line. And that's where we thrive. We really thrive, and I thrive on that side of product development of cutting all the fluff out and let's do exactly what we need to do to get you from point A to point B.
Okay, so let's do that. Let's cut all the fluff out and let's talk about what it takes to get from point A to point B.
No more marketing pitches, right?
No more, right? No more marketing pitches. Let's just get right to it. So, like what type of mistakes do people make when they're trying to get from point A to point B?
Well, so you're a patent attorney, so I'm going to try not to offend you, but
no, you can. If you want to say people waste their money on patents, go ahead and say, because I say that too. People often do waste their money on patents.
Yeah, I often meet people.
So you don't have to like hide that, because it's.
I was being a bit facetious. Right. You're reputable in the field, but oftentimes I meet people that they spent 90% of their budget on the wrong patent before they even start development. It's like they had this idea, they got on paper, and the first thing they're kind of obsessed with getting a patent. They run out to a patent attorney who's in many cases maybe not as scrupulous as you. It's like, oh yeah, we'll patent it. We can patent anything. So they get this patent that ends up going up on their wall, and then they spend all this money. Then they come see me, and within 30 minutes of meeting with them, we've already found 4 or 5 better ways to do their product than what their patent covers. And they're like, well, we need to do what the patent says. Well, that's fine. You can produce that product, but if I can come up with better ways and cheaper ways in 5 minutes, your competitors can too. So that patent really, in those cases, it became kind of a worthless piece of wall art. So,
Absolutely.
So in a broader sense, people spend money on the wrong things without really understanding how the process works.
Yep.
I think there's a lot of snake oil salesmen out there in the industry that convince people that you need to just engineer it, you need to just make a prototype, you need to do this, that, or the other. They're very in some unscrupulous patent attorneys, you need to just do a patent, but they're not looking at the whole big business picture. So I think that's the big mistake I see is people think about their invention or their prototype without thinking about their business, and that leads to people having a lot of problems.
Yep, exactly. And I think, a good way to tie that together is them not seeing what the opportunity is in front of them, where it's like sometimes the patent is an opportunity, but only if they could get a patent on the concept and not on the specific solution, right?
Right. Exactly.
And so then that could be a good opportunity, but most of the time, as you said, 90% of the time, it's probably not. The patent is not the most important thing in front of, not the most important opportunity. And a lot of times their solution isn't the right opportunity. It's like they have a solution and they're told, build a prototype on that, or let's find out about manufacturing it, where really the opportunity that they had was not their solution, but is that they identified the problem. And maybe they identified the problem, they identified the need. That's really the brilliance of what they did. And maybe there's a different solution that someone like you can help them brainstorm. And then then the effort would not be wasted by spending all this time pursuing the wrong solution.
Yeah, and you're exactly right. The most important part of a successful product is a good problem to solve. Or a good opportunity. Sometimes not so much a problem. It
Right.
can be an opportunity to maximize as well. But that's much more important than the solution. And matching that problem with the right solution is also key. People will come in here. They maybe if they found a good problem to solve, but their solution, it's kind of like the cure is worse than the disease. Sometimes they have this $100 solution for a $5 problem. So we have to work through those things, because that may be a clever, maybe a very cool invention, but that's not a business. It's only one part of the issue. The core, as you've said, is they found a really good problem to solve. So now let's take a step back and figure out what's a better way we can solve that the market would actually support, and we can launch a business that way.
So why do you think that people invent?
Well, lots of different reasons. There's good reasons to invent. There's bad reasons to invent. I'm sure you've met, as I have, people that are just like, I want to be an inventor. I'm going to just invent something. I don't care what it is. I'm going to go out there and I'm going to find it and I'm going to invent it. Usually that doesn't work out so well. The best inventors that I've met are the ones that have encountered a problem in their daily lives. Maybe they're maybe they're a dentist, and there's this process they do in dentistry. This is actually a real example. It's a process they do in dentistry, and they spend a lot of time on it, and they're like, this is not the best. There's got to be a better way to do this. So then they create a solution for that that's very focused around the problem that they deal with all day long. And maybe they found some sort of workaround, and they're like, could this workaround become a product that other people can use? So I think, there's that old expression, necessity is the mother of invention. And I think it can also be frustration is the mother of invention, is that things that frustrate people in their daily lives tend to lead to the best inventions. Mothers that have an issue with their kids, and they come up with an invention to solve that. Or again, doctors, nurses, whoever it is, plumbers come up with the best plumbing products. It's the doctor who tries to come up with a plumbing product that sometimes doesn't do as well, or the plumber that tries to come up with a dental product. And that's where we generally We generally find issues. Sometimes it works out, but usually it's the people that experience problems that come up with the best inventions.
Right. So it's like that dentist that experiences that problem in a dental process and says, like, this is like pulling teeth. There needs to be a better way.
Exactly.
So I couldn't resist that. But yeah, in general, though, it's like, I think where people do often go wrong, as you say, it's kind of like when they invent outside of their field. Like someone tries to imagine what a carpenter would want, and they don't do carpentry.
Right.
But carpenter who's faced with this problem every single day knows exactly what that frustration is and knows how excited he or she would be if all of a sudden this thing was available. And so that's usually a good start.
Yeah, and that actually translates over to how we do design and development to some extent. A carpenter comes in with a great solution or a great problem to solve, and maybe it needs some work around the solution. I'll never know as much about carpentry as they do, but I have to immerse myself somewhat into the problem that they're experiencing, that they're trying to solve, to create a solution for. So if I don't understand anything about how if I don't understand the nature of the problem they're solving, at least on some level, I can't really help them. So not only do the experts in the fields come up with the best problems, but I have to jump in and try to leverage as much of their expertise as I can to help them solve it.
Got it. And so when it comes to and first of all, you mentioned immersing yourself in the problem helps you to solve it. But also one of the things that's called for here is to validate the ideas, to validate that we're on the right track, which I imagine also requires immersing yourself in it. But how do you go about approaching validating ideas? Like, what do you think is the best approach for validating an idea, knowing you're on track with your solution?
Well, there's, off the top of my head, there's 3 areas of validation that are really important. One, does it work? Can you do the physics even work out? So there we would build prototypes. We might build prototypes early on that are not very pretty. They're just what we call proof of concept prototypes. So we're not spending a lot of money on them. We're not spending a lot of the client's money on them. We're just confirming that you put these 2 pieces of material together, they're going to do what they're supposed to do. So that's a validation of just the does it work side. There's also the validation of, is the design appropriate side? And there we'll create, early on, we'll create imagery, we'll create digital renderings, we'll create virtual prototypes that the client can then go and show to their potential customers and say, here's the new type of hammer. Does it look right? Does it look like something you would buy? The third one that I think a lot of people in this field kind of miss, or at least don't think about early on, is the cost validation. So remember I said earlier, some people have $100 solutions to $5 problems.
Yep.
We need to make sure that the solution we're coming up with has a pathway to a reasonable manufacturing cost. So we'll do that analysis and validation as well as early as we can. Now on day one, I can't give you exactly what it's going to cost, but we can start to sharpen that picture as we move forward. The last thing I want my clients to do is get really excited about a solution that gets priced out of the market. So we want to make sure that we validate all 3 of those elements as early as we can. Now, granted, different industries may put more emphasis on one or the other. If it's a fashion accessory, then the design validation is going to be more important. If it's a medical product, the functionality might be more important. The cost might be less important. If it's a very commoditized type thing, cost might be the most important thing. But all 3 really have to be validated.
Got it. So, what role have you seen? What role have you seen IP play in the progress of your clients' products, in helping them enter the marketplace? And granted, we've already discussed one part of it, which was that often they do spend too much on it and for the wrong reasons. But let's just look at the situations where it has helped them, where it has been the appropriate thing. So what role have you seen it play?
Well, in areas where their intellectual property can really can be pretty broad, and really form a wall of protection around their core ideas, such that others cannot create competitive products without violating those ideas. I see that playing very strongly in cases of licensing, especially in areas like the medical fields. We did work with a doctor, 3 or 4 years ago now. It was a kind of a complicated medical procedure, but his product was able to get some fairly broad intellectual property around it, which really he never intended to launch the product himself. That was really all about taking that intellectual property and the prototypes, et cetera, to a surgical tool manufacturer, and he got them to license that based on that intellectual property. And I think in that case, the intellectual property being very broad or broad enough to protect that idea was very important. Sometimes I think the patent strategy is really important. Sometimes in more consumer type items where, the patent strategist, patent attorney looks at that and says, we're not going to be able to get a really broad patent here. Let's go the provisional, the patent pending route that gives you at least cursory level protection, which I'm sure you could talk to better than I can.
Foot in the
That lets
door.
them say patent pending on their product. It gets out there, they grab some market share, they make their money, they go. And then if it's successful, somebody's going to knock it off. But by then, there's nothing you can do about that. But it does provide that little bit of timeline of where people don't know if it's going to be fully patented or not. And so I see those as kind of two areas. Really, the licensing area to a big company. Most inventors, frankly, they're not going to have the funds to defend a patent in court if they had to. Unless they're part of a bigger startup, or they've got some financial backing behind them. I do have another example of a doctor we did a product for. I did a product for earlier in my career, and they did have some financial backing, so they were able to protect some things in court. And the very first revenue they made off their product was actually licensing revenue, where someone else had inadvertently violated their intellectual property, and it wasn't really competitive, but it was a violation. So they were able to go after them and say, we don't want to go to court. You're making a lot of money off of this. It's our IP. Pay us X amount. And they ended up getting licensing revenue out of that for several years, and that was their, it wasn't enough to change their business direction at all, but they got money out of having that IP in place.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's an important thing, is that first of all, if you want to license something, you really do need to have IP to be able to license it, and it has to be strong IP. So it's like, if I think a good lesson is if your intention is to license a product, then you need to take a close look at whether it's possible to get strong IP protection, strong patent protection. Right. Because if all you're able to do is get a patent on the very specific solution, like some very specific details about it, no one's going to want to license that. The company that you show it to might be excited about the concept, but they don't necessarily need to follow every last detail of your solution.
Right.
And if that's all you're able to patent, you're not going to be able to license it. They'll be excited enough about it to go ahead and make their own solution and pursue that market. So
yeah, I think a good test is you bring your IP to me or someone like me, and if we can design around it in an hour, then it's probably not real strong, and that's something to be concerned about.
Yep, exactly. So then, I mean, I know that you don't directly offer marketing services for clients, but you have created an opportunity to help your clients connect with each other and other manufacturers. You created something called Innovation Marketplace. Do you want to tell me a bit about that?
Yeah. So, I think one of the things that differentiates us is that we do have a lot of products we develop that make it to the market and become successful businesses. And I'm a little surprised. Sometimes I go to my competitors' websites and I see a lot of pretty pictures of things that you never actually see in the store or anywhere
And a lot of
else.
pretty logos. Like it would say like
Yeah.
Home Depot, Lowe's.
Exactly. It's
Like, well, oh, you had a product in Home Depot and Lowe's?
yeah, it was.
No,
It was
we
there for a month
we
and
just
then
like
they
Home
closed.
Depot and Lowe's. We shop there too.
Right. So this is a section of our website which is actually just links out to my clients' websites where
Right.
they're on the market. That they have their products are out in the real world, and you can go there and check them out. You can buy the products, and it's a way for us to support our clients a little bit. But it's also, to me, it's even better than a portfolio page of look at all the cool stuff we've designed. It's look at all the businesses we've helped, we've been a part of getting off the ground and into the marketplace. And it's one of my favorite things is to see one of the products I developed out in the market, and I like to direct people to them. So that's what that's all about.
Yeah, it is a pretty awesome feeling, right? When you see your clients have success with the thing that you gave them a boost with. I mean, we can't always say that like it was us that made it successful, that made the difference, but seeing someone be successful and knowing that we helped in some way, I think is probably the most satisfying part of
Right.
this.
Yeah. I mean, it takes a lot of cooks in the kitchen to get a product business launched, and we're a part of that. We're certainly not everything, but it is very gratifying to see the fruits of our labor out in the market.
Absolutely. So if people want to learn more about you or get in touch with you, how do they go about doing so?
So the best way to reach us is through our website. It's just productquickstart.com. On there, of course, you'll find all the obligatory contact us forms. We do also have a self-assessment form, which is really useful if you do want us to reach out to you. If you can fill that out, that helps us to understand where you're at and helps us to prepare for a call with you. So find us through the website. We'll be happy to schedule a call with you. No charge to talk on the phone for a little while and figure out if we can help you.
Awesome. Noah, really appreciate you coming and visiting the show. Thanks so much for being here.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Innovations and Breakthroughs with your host, Rich Goldstein. Be sure to click subscribe, check us out on the web at innovationsandbreakthroughs.com, and we'll see you next time.